Hi, I'm AK. Today I wanted to talk about the most controversial project that's going on in LA right now, which is the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, otherwise known as Lacma. So people have come to Los Angeles for about 100 years now with money, with paintings, with art collections, and then when they donate them, they give them to the Museum of Los Angeles a lot of the times, and they also make rules about, if I give this to you, do you promise to display it? And there's all kinds of terms and conditions. So the LA Museum of Art has a wide, crazy wide variety of stuff. They have mummies, they have modern stuff, they have, French antique furniture, Japanese art. It's really encyclopedic is the term. So we have this massive collection of art. So the controversy is that we already had a set of museum buildings. Like we already had structures, exhibits, you could see everything, it was all arranged. But the museum director decided that he wanted a starchitect. Like he wanted global superstar, world attention, all in LA, millions of dollars. And so that's what he did. So at first they had kind of this limited competition thing, and they were kind of leaning towards Rem Koolhaas, who was like superstar of kind of the 90s. He kind of looks like a evil villain in Prada. And then they ended up going with the star of the moment, who is Peter Zumthor. It pains me to say some of this stuff because I actually love the work of Peter Zumthor, and I think he's really incredible. And he did some buildings that are so poetic and just crazy beautiful. So I apologize in advance for the things that I will say. Every once in a while, there's an architect that comes on the scene and they do a project that just captivates the world. And that's what happened with this guy, Peter Zumthor. He's a Swiss architect, and he did these thermal baths in Switzerland where it's like narrow slivers of light falling on these pools of water, and it's all carved out of the stone of the mountain. And it's crazy beautiful. So people saw this and they said, oh my God, genius, we need to hire him to do all these buildings. So he's had a big career doing more and more. And he's done art museums, but not as big and not in the US. So this is kind of a big deal, getting like superstar wonder kid. Well, he's not a child, he's not a kid at all. He kind of looks like Obi-Wan Kenobi, so that's a plus. But they get this mysterious Swiss architect to come and design the art museum for Los Angeles. The other piece of kind of urban legend about Peter Zumthor is that he's Swiss, he's not in this for the publicity, that he barely talks to the press, that he has some like mountain retreat studio, and if the press show up at the door, he shuts it in their face. This could all be not true, but this is kind of like the urban legend around him, so whatever. Take that with a grain of salt. So the museum director decides that he wants Peter to design a building for Lacma. The other thing to know about Lacma is that it's located in the middle of Los Angeles. So it's south of Hollywood, it's on Wilshire Boulevard, which is like the main street that connects the whole city, and it's next to a place called the La Brea Tar Pits. And Los Angeles has all of its money because of oil, basically, and then, movie industry and all this stuff, but oil was a huge part of it, and oil still like comes out of the street. And literally next door, they have these tar pits, which are pretty amazing. So they have this big tar pit out front. They have these big plastic woolly mammoths going in, and you can go into the museum and you see all these skulls of all the saber-tooths, and you can try to pull a weight out of the tar, and it's kind of this amazing museum. Lacma is on the same block and shares this campus with the La Brea Tar Pits. Peter Zumthor's project that he proposed was a black amorphous blob, not unlike a tar pit. Something to know about architects is you can tell them what you want and they might do something else entirely. You want a house and you say, I need 3 bedrooms and I want to have a pool and I want to have like a sport court because my kids play sports or whatever. The architect could come back to you and say, you know what, I've really been thinking a lot about the patterns made by sheep when they're being herded and the natural fractals that are created and the energy and the life force contained within that movement. So someone might go for this and say, yes, I love it. And the other person would say, I think that you're crazy. So we definitely have within architecture a tension between, I have needs, I have an idea, does the idea win? Like, does the idea destroy the needs. That's basically the conversation that we're having here. Peter Zumthor then designs a virtual tar pit, but it's above the ground. So the tar pit is raised and there's this whole band that goes around, and on the outside is all windows. And from these windows, you can be inside the tar pit and you can look out at Hollywood. There's a couple of problems with this though, because art basically can't be in the sunlight ever unless it's sculpture and maybe it's made of bronze and it's really durable. So no oil paintings can go out, a lot of paper stuff can't be out. So now he's designed a tar pit. So you said, I need an art museum, and he comes back and says, oh, I made you a tar pit. And then you go to the tar pit, and the tar pit is like very Instagrammable. Like you can be inside the tar pit and you can walk all around the tar pit and you can see Hollywood and you see the mountains. But at no point is there any art yet, really, because all the walls are curved. Most art has a flat back, or a lot of it does, if it's like a painting. And also the art can't be in the light. So now you have an art museum, there's a tar pit that you live inside that can't hold any art. A normal part of architecture too is you take in the criticism and then you work with it. So people say, hey, there's no space for art here in this art museum. And they said, oh, you're right. So let's start putting some blocks in the middle. So literally we have this blob, and then there's blocks like in the middle of the blob. But what it looks like, have you seen videos where a bacteria like eats other cells and it like surrounds it and it eats them? So it's basically like an amoeba ate a bunch of blocks and they're all in the middle. And this keeps getting revised. So now you have an amoeba. Did it have to be an amoeba? No, but it seemed cool. And then these blocks are on the inside. Critics come back and they say, this isn't enough storage. We have all this art. We have massive amounts of art. You can't show any of it here. And why are you making this huge building when only a tiny percentage is actually given over to the art? And most of it is just the blob or the tar pit, which can't hold art at all. Everyone's starting to look at this tar pit. Are you kidding me? We're making a tar pit. Why are we building a tar pit? And then they decide to make the tar pit beige, which is maybe like hiding the fact that it's a tar pit. So now this blob that's extending across Wilshire Boulevard at this point, it's like growing. It's a monster that will eat us all. This has become like limestone, beigey, and no one will talk about it. So the architect won't tell you why, there's no real explanation, but somehow, so don't ask about the beige because they don't want to talk about the beige. So now we have a beige tar pit and not a black tar pit. The other part about this that was causing controversy is that part of the funding is coming from the public itself. So $125 million about is coming from the taxpayers of Los Angeles. The taxpayers don't get to vote on this building, and they don't get to say what they like or what they don't like. They just get what they get, and the rest of the money comes from private sources. The money is coming from the LA County Board of Supervisors. So the supervisors voted unanimously in favor of this museum. But it was revealed that the supervisors got all these emails from people, and 83% of the emails that came in were opposing this. So if you sent an email to the LA County Board of Supervisors, it didn't do shit. The supervisors ignored the public. Brad Pitt testified, like, woo! Celebrities came, celebrities want to build it, it's a Starchitect. I mean, LA definitely has a reputation of doing things that celebrities want or celebrities endorse. So I guess it's not surprising. But at the end of the day, so the public is partially paying a lot of money for something that's being demolished during the pandemic. They're saying, why are you spending money on something we didn't want, tearing down buildings we do want? Why aren't you giving that to hospitals? And then you have Brad Pitt showing up. It's like, yeah, it's an awesome building. We should definitely build this building. Another criticism of this building is that Peter Zumthor is a Swiss man, right? So he's known for being very meticulous. Swiss people are meticulous. They do precise things like watches and cuckoo clocks and trains and, really tight engineering. And if you look at his previous projects, a lot of it is like harsh lines and thin stripes of light, total precision, right? So here we have tight precision guy who's doing poetry with these really harsh lines. Now he's making a blob. But like, is that really his wheelhouse? You know, is that really what he was born to do? Is born to do blobs? Because I don't know how old he is. I think he's pretty old, but he, to my knowledge, has never done blobs, and it's kind of like not feeling very authentic coming from him. Like, to me, if you looked at this building, this doesn't look like a Peter Zumthor building at all. So when we look back at the history of architecture, we say, you know, did someone do this before? Has this been done? And in this case, it's a very clear yes, like this has totally been done before. Exactly, like this is the same building. The person who did this before, his name was Oscar Niemeyer, and he's Brazilian, and he did all this crazy, amazing, like wavy concrete stuff in like the 50s and 60s in Brazil. When you think of Brazil, you think of Niemeyer, crazy curved concrete, Roberto Burle Marx, like amazing curved gardens. Brazil's really good at the curvy stuff, and I would say that the Swiss people are kind of less good at the curvy stuff, you know? It's not really their deal. These aren't blob people. These are, you know, railway, tunnel, you know. The public is partially paying for this. They didn't get to vote. We had an existing museum that worked kind of fine, but maybe it wasn't super popular and it wasn't designed by a star architect. 3, this guy's designing a building that he's never designed before. 4, it still isn't dealing with the fact that the art has nowhere to go. So now they're starting to like put more galleries in the middle and extend the height of them. So they keep coming out with new images. And the new images seem to have an increased height in the middle so that the galleries can get some natural light, but it's filtered, so the galleries seem to be improving. So that's a good thing. But the big question here, the philosophical question is, okay, is this building art? And if this building is art, is it being art more important than the art that's on the inside? Question 2, does it matter if people gave art with all these rules about, you know, it has to be on display or it needs a certain thing? Is it okay to throw that out? Like, is it okay to, you know, we want to have a new paradigm. Okay, that's cool, but you made agreements before. Like, I know it's a new director, but, you know, they told people, you know, yes, we're going to take care of this for you. Another big question is, do you think maybe more people will actually come to this museum because it's very Instagrammable? You can like see Hollywood, you're inside like a beige tar pit. So what if more people come to the museum, but you're seeing less art because there's less space for the art, and then they change the art more often and people keep coming back? It sounds like the museum director just made up his mind. He's like, I want to do something new. I want to put my stamp on this place. We're going to tear all the old shit down and we are going to make what I want, basically. And another question that we have to ask is controversy good for the museum and for this project? Because so many people are talking about it, so many people are angry. There are opposition groups, there are protests, there are petitions. People are going crazy about this. So will that drive more people to the museum? You know, and now we can't stop the old buildings from being torn down. They're gone. So we have no museum, we have to make a new one. And it seems like we cannot stop this $750 million train of a tar pit that is coming, a beige tar pit. And I have to say, I love this architect so much. I just think he's a genius, and I totally don't get this building. And I hope that it's amazing. Like, I hope that I walk in and I think that it's poetry. So I don't know, this is all heartbreaking for me. I love this architect. I actually love this museum. They have really wacky stuff there, and I don't know, it's kind of weird and fun. So I'm very curious what you think about this building. So yay or nay? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. And other people, you know, like the Brad Pitts of the world, are just super excited about this beige tar pit. It's funny.